This is the Bible of the electrogenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
All right, I see the chat is trolling nice and early, respectfully.
Osborne, bro, listen. The single most important thing about diabetes you gotta remember is, listen, matter of fact, when we get into Bentley, I'll explain it. Thank God Jimmy sent us this Bentley. Listen, wait. Take us. My wife! From the crown of thorns to facial chains and diabetes, you have never heard this much knowledge before. This is the Bible of the electrogenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ.
All right, so I was waiting. I was patiently waiting for a track to explode on. All right, so shout out to the family. Shout out to the family. Before we even get started, who has the new books? He said nobody. No, seriously, people have the new books because we're already working on a solution. Right? So shout out to the Patreon family. We're already working on a solution. Now, the solution is 15-week It's a 15-week curriculum. It's going to be university styled, 3 classes per week, 15 weeks. Yeah, 3 classes a week, 15 weeks. Something like that, give or take. It might be a little bit longer. Shout out to Tika. Tika has the new book. So if you have the new books, one of the new books is called Electrogenic Inhibition. Electrogenic Inhibition. So in that, we talk about visceral fat in a way that's never been discussed before. Yeah, we discuss visceral fat in a way that's never been discussed before. To the point where I think we might have. I say this often, like, I think we might have changed the game. but I think we did something. I think we like shifted the like. I can't even say shifted the culture. Like we went somewhere else with it. Like it's so we got a 15-week course, university styled, and we're gonna start probably this week. We're probably gonna start this week. Or maybe we won't start this week. Maybe we'll start the following week. Yeah, maybe we'll start the following week. All right. It's going to be nuts, though. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. Those are going to be, I'm trying to think where we're going to put 3 classes every week. Yeah, I'm trying to think where we're going to put 3 classes. We got Thursday at 7. We got Friday at 10. We can't move Friday at 10. Friday at 10 is locked in. We got Saturday and Sunday. Monday and Wednesday is kind of open. Yeah, Monday and Wednesday is kind of open. I don't know where we're going to stick 3 classes a week. I don't know where we're going to stick 3 classes a week. We got to figure out something. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Maybe Thursday, maybe slide something right on up into the Thursday slot. Yeah, I might slide something into the Thursday slot. But the thing is, y'all got to keep up with the classes if I do them. Yeah, because I don't want to, I feel like I may be putting too much information too fast. Because I gauge when I should do another class by how many people watched the last video. So it'd be taking people like 2 or 3 days to watch the video. You know what I'm saying? Like people have to get hit. Like I might go live right now, and then it might take till Sunday or Monday before people actually watch this video. So I don't be wanting to overdo it. Maybe you're right though. Maybe I should just go crazy and just like flood the, this. If I flood everybody with information, I want y'all to blame Tika. Blame Tika for the suggestion and blame Peyton for gassing me up. Yo. If I overdo it, blame Tika for the suggestion. Blame Peyton for gassing me up. Certified big facts. All right, so let's go into the American Healer Files. Right? Let's go into the American Healer Files. I really like this book. Amazon had me gassed up. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Amazon had me gassed up. They violated though. Yeah, they violated. Because they put for months, they was putting how they was making the books. Like they was charging more money to the authors for inexpensive books and lowering the prices on expensive books so that it would be cheaper for us to make books with like color pictures and nice, like the glossy cover and here. Now, mind you, when you publishing with them, you don't find out the cost of your book until after you finish. I said, Amazon, y'all trolling, boy. But I really do like the finished product. I really do like the finished product. It was really nice. Or rather, it is really nice. Right? All right. So anyway, we did our thing. We opened up. We did our thing. We opened up on AMPK, NAD, and then sirtuins. Now, there's all kinds of space to go way deeper into. Oh, shout out to everybody that has been out there utilizing the free book and the dialogues and trying to actually talk to people about inspiration and Christ or Christ, whatever you feel, like whatever's in your heart, whatever interpretation, whatever pronunciation you're more comfortable with. And you've been trying to talk to your mom, your auntie, your homeboys, your basketball team, folks at your car wash, your job, like wherever you at, the folks at your supermarket, wherever you at, you've been, look, here's a free book, right? Now, I didn't even think about this. Download the book to your phone. Download the book to your phone, and then you can, you can drop some info like right from the phone. You can share, you can copy and paste stuff from the book, text message, blast out, and then send the link with it. Right? Somebody showed me they was doing that. Like they was copying and pasting certain specific information and then putting the link. Like, here, this is a clip from the book. Click this to get the full book. Like, so shout out to everybody that has been going crazy with the link, with the free book. Who knows how long we'll have that link? Who knows how long we'll have the free book, right? So let's try to enlighten as many people as we can. Like, let us enlighten the world. All right. So this is what I wanted to do, though. I wanted to jump maybe tonight can be short, so we're not up all night, right? So we're not up all night. I wanted to jump to page 205. Let's see. From 205 to see if we can get through. From 205 to maybe I'll do this backwards. Let's go to 229 first. Okay, yeah, let's do this backwards. So we're going to go to page 229, and then we're going to work backwards. Right? So what I should have did was probably titled this video a little bit differently, but I guess this is just for the select. This is for the elite. This is for the elite anyway. All right, so if you have went through the book, you know the book is primarily based around electric wiring, right? Electric wiring, how each cell is wired. How each cell is wired, right? On a Friday night, we're talking about how cells are wired. This is truly the geek. This is the geek squad. If you're in this live stream, you are absolute nerd. Period. If you are in this live stream, you are absolute nerd. Yeah. You are a saint. All right. But all of the major illnesses, at least the ones I highlighted, right? What we highlighted was diabetes, right? That's a part of the mission statement. Diabetes, dementia, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, and cancer. Let's go, Peyton. Let's go, Peyton. Peyton just bust me over the head with a bag of gold coins, Scrooge McDuck style. We definitely appreciate you, big bro. Peyton probably, they said, my son told me, he said, you're not supposed to say big bro to somebody that's younger than you. Well, if you hitting the super chat, you big bro status. But no, so we highlighted diabetes, dementia, right, / Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, and cancer, right? Those 5 things. And then, so I want to just run through those tonight. and then we get out of here. Now, again, for the tests, right? Because I know some people are getting froggy. They ready to leap. To do your test, it's a live test, right? So you got to hit me up. My phone is back working. My 5,000 number, 586-298-5000 is back working, right? You got to hit me up and we got to schedule your live test. It's a live test. It's a live test. It's not going to be live streamed on YouTube, but it's going to be me setting up a Zoom where I can see you, or StreamYard where I can see you and ask you the questions so that I can watch you answer them. That's how it is in 2025. You know what I'm saying? People got Google, they got AI. Obviously, you got the books. So I can't like do a written test, because I know people was hitting me up on Patreon like, yo, when are you going to send out the actual test? I'm not sending out no actual tests. Everybody's going to get 100. No, that'd be too easy. That would be too easy. So you got to study the information, and you're not going to know how many questions I'm going to ask, or which questions I'm going to ask, or what order, right? You won't be able to cheat and use anything around you. I'm going to look at you, you know, and ask you the questions, and you got to answer them in a timely fashion, you know, so you can't have like your son or your boyfriend, wife, husband, you know, you can't have somebody on the side like flashing you the answers. You know what I'm saying? These are going to be timely fashion. But yeah, so that way, because, you know, I know people studying. And, you know, they like, I'm ready. And I'm like, how did you study 500 questions already? You ready with the answer? But so let me just say this also. It's not a certain percentage. It's not a certain percentage. It's not like a standardized test where it's like, okay, I'm going to ask you X amount of questions, and, you know, if you get, you know, 8 out of 10 or 16 out of 20, or if you get an 85% or higher, or it's not that. I'm going to be asking you questions, and yes, you need to kind of know the answer from the material, but that's not what I'll be looking for, right? Because having the degrees is all about being able to teach and share the information. So I'll be looking more so for you to not have it memorized, but for you to have the understanding of it. So that way you can share the information, and just being able to say, okay, I feel comfortable with you out there in the world sharing the information, representing me. Like, you know, I don't want you to be out there sounding crazy. And that's it. That's it. Just making sure. It's just so a person could get, hypothetically, a person could get 10 out of 10 questions correct, and they might still fail. I might still be like, yo, you got to take the test again. And I'm not even saying there's going to be 10 questions. It could be 5 or it could be 30. That's why I got to look at you, because I'm looking for something. So if I don't see it, I might just keep asking you questions until I decide, okay, they don't got it. They need to keep studying. Or it might just be a few questions, and I'll be like, oh, okay, you got it. You know what I'm saying? You got it down pat. Yeah, you good. And then I'll send out your certification in the mail. So you actually have your certification. Yeah, I'll send out your certification in the mail so you have your certification. but it's not a set amount of questions. Every person, they'll have a completely different. And then once you're certified, that means that you also can turn around and certify other folks, right? So that's another reason why I got to make sure you got it, because I'll be trusting you to be able to certify other folks. Yeah, you'll be able to certify some other folks. And there's no charge for the test. There's no charge for the test. Maybe in the future there'll be, but there's no charge for the test. Because I want people to feel comfortable, like if you fail, you could just do it again, right? You could just do it again. It's not like, obviously not the next day, but, like Aaliyah, first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. Yeah, just study a little bit more and then come back and do it again. So you don't have to have any fear about or anxiety. Like, I think I know the information pretty well, but I don't want to fail and then it's not like that. When I took my real estate test in New York, there was a lot of people like that, because I think at the time it was only allowing you to take it twice. If you take it one time, fail, you get a retake, and then after that, you couldn't take it again for like 3 years or 5 years, some old crazy practice. Yeah, my test never intimidated me. I've always passed them on the first go round. So, all right. Electrical wiring disease signatures. Electrical wiring disease signatures. So I want to run through this, briefly, and then, we'll kind of come back and hit the whiteboard, and then hopefully we get out of here quickly. All right. See y'all laughing. Y'all laughing. Y'all probably laughing. Yeah, this is the nerd class for sure. Yeah, this is the nerd class for sure. Friday night and date time, right? But I actually already had a date tonight. Yeah, I already had a date tonight. I ended my date early. Yeah, I ended my date early so I could get to class. Yeah, I had a date with my children. I had a date with my children. Yeah. So we could have like a epic conversation about comedy. That's what we had, a date night, comedy conversation. From my era to their era, we was discussing The Naked Gun. Yeah, we was discussing The Naked Gun. Cause that was kind of crazy back in the days, at least early on anyway, before they got too crazy. Now they bring it back. So, all right. Diabetes. Right? Let's start with diabetes. That's the mission statement. Diabetes is the gateway disease. Like you have a gateway drug, diabetes is the gateway disease. Low magnesium, low potassium, high calcium. Low magnesium and potassium. Those are the main two signatures. Low magnesium, low potassium. Low magnesium, low potassium. Dementia. Zinc, copper, and iron flooding. Zinc, copper, and iron flooding. Zinc, copper, and iron flooding. Cardiovascular disease. Calcium spikes. Low magnesium. Sodium and potassium levels reversed. And almost no chloride. Almost no chloride. Chloride is very important. Chloride is very important. Hit the Google real quick. Hit the Google real quick, because this will probably be a question. Or just take it down in your notes. What's the difference between chloride, sodium, magnesium, potassium? Like, what's the difference between all of those ions? There's something different about chloride than all the rest of the ions, or at least the main ones, right? The main ones: calcium, potassium, sodium, magnesium. There's something they have in common that chloride doesn't. And so it makes chloride much more important than the other guys. It makes chloride much more important than the other guys. Because if chloride is missing, there's no replacement. If chloride is missing, there's no replacement. I mean, every ion is unique, but in some instances, guys can stand in and represent one another. Maintain fluid balance, alkaline. No. Those things may be true, but that's not the answer. All right, so I'll let y'all wrestle with that. Autoimmune disease, high levels of calcium, high levels of sodium. Cancer. Cancer has high levels of proton activity. Anion. See? Lord Push-Ups got it. The Lord of Push-Ups got it. Mr. 120. Mr. 60 and 60. All right, hold on. Jump to cancer real quick. What does it mean, right? When I say protons rising, we're talking about cancer now, right? We're talking about cancer, right? Matter of fact, first of all, how is a proton represented in the ion community? What is a proton? Because science is still not comfortable using food. Food people are still not comfortable using scientific language. So therefore, they don't say electrons and protons when you're talking about food or biochemistry, at least in that space. They say something else. Yeah, there you go. The negative charge. That's Peyton. Peyton's still on the last one. That's the negative charge. That's the thing with chloride. Chloride is the most important to restore that negative charge. Remember, the resting cell potential is always going to be somewhere for a healthy cell in between -50 and -90 millivolts. Chloride resets that. Chloride resets that. No chloride, all hell is breaking loose inside those cells. But skip to cancer. How is protons identified? See this right now. See y'all getting set. Y'all getting set to me like hitting the whiteboard and reading through the book and woo woo woo. Like, you need to get set for this. You need to get used to this, because this is going to get you prepared to have the conversation with your homeboy, to have the conversation with your girlfriend, your gym partner, your coworker, the people out in the world, the lady that does your hair, your barber, the people out in the world that you need to be discussing inspiration with. That is the whole idea of inspiration. You have to go out and inspire, right? You have to go out and inspire, and it got to be levels to it. I want y'all to understand, we're not playing with this, right? You got to be ready. Listen, let me tell you when I was ready. Let me tell you when I knew I was ready, when I felt comfortable, like in my soul, like I knew that I had arrived intellectually, when I knew I had arrived, because I've went through every space, right? I've went through the space where I knew and felt things in my mind or in my heart, but I wasn't ready to articulate them, right? You start talking to somebody about it, and then they bust you up, and then you get frustrated because you can't really, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've been through those spaces, and respectfully, the dumber the person is that you're talking to, or the sweeter, the nicer the person is. And then you got the combination of the two. That's what naive is. Naive is a nice, dumb person. Like, that makes it easier. That makes the conversation easier. The less a person knows, the more inviting a person is. It makes it easier for you to have a conversation with them. But as a person gets more intelligent, right, especially older, more entrenched in their ways, it's going to be more and more difficult for you to be able to discuss these concepts with people, right? So you have to practice. And so for me, I knew that I was like Luke Skywalker level ready, like use the force. Like, I knew I was ready when I could talk to doctors. Like when I was in Temple University, that was the experience for me. But that was God doing his, God was doing his thing in that time period, like at that moment. That wasn't a situation I walked into with my eyes open, right? I had been kind of misled and set up. So even to this day, I don't fully understand how I got into that situation, right? I know there was an old man who was recording me, taking me back to the medical students and to the medical staff at the medical school. And he was like challenging everybody with the stuff I was saying and boo whoop. And they start coming to buy the books and boo, I know the story. But when he invited me there to speak, he didn't tell me that I was going there. He said, yo, the medical students, they be buying the books and all that. They want you to come down there and teach, do a class over there and see if you could start doing like regular classes or whatever. And that's what I had set in my mind. When I get there, it's only a handful of students, and it's the actual medical staff. It's the teachers. It's the doctors. And, but that, it went exceptionally well. It went way better than I thought. And I was like, oh, that gave me the confidence to, and then from there, that gave me the confidence to just talk to anybody and feel like, but for you at home, you have to build that confidence, like you got to build that confidence. So, we got to practice, right? There's certain books that have dialogues in the book so you can practice at home by yourself. Then we practice. Then you get out there, you have some practice with, some people that don't know anything, right? Then you have some people that love you, practice with them, practice with folks that don't know anything, right? And then as you get more comfortable with your conversation, with, things that people are going to say, types of people, things like that, then you can have more and more challenging conversations, right? Because there's some people that they just eat anything, right? They just eat anything. So they don't really have a conversation. They'll be interested in hearing whatever you're saying. But then there's people that's going to really, and you might have a couple of them in your family, right? Like if your grandma's still alive, it's like some of the most vicious, unsuspecting people. I thought grandmas would be sweet. They're not. Grandmas feel very violated when you challenge what they've been feeding their family. So they might come right at your throat. That's the experience. Boy, I fed your mom and I fed your daddy. Like, so grandmas get, but you got to have those conversations. You know what I'm saying? You got to have those conversations. So anyway, we're going to be having a lot of, this type of conversation where I'm going to be asking you stuff, looking to see the participation, you know what I'm saying? Looking to see who taking long to answer the question. First of all, some people not answering at all, but then some people taking long because they going to hit the Google demons, the Google angels. They going to type it in somewhere first, which is cool, right? Get comfortable with that. After a while, you won't need to type in certain stuff, especially if you hear it over and over. All right. So anyway, Cancer. If we say protons are rising, that's going to be positive hydrogen ions, right? So that's how they address electrons and protons. Instead of just saying electrons and protons, which is more sciencey language, they just do like the negative hydrogen ion or the positive hydrogen ion. Negative, positive, negative. Hydrogen ions are going to play a very big role in the 15-week course that we have coming up. Yeah, hydrogen is going to be a very big chunk of that curriculum. We got some major, like the earthquake, and they were scared of the tsunami or the typhoon or whatever it was, and they was getting mad with Oprah the other night and all that. Like earthquake, like the earth is going to shake when we start dropping that information. It's going to be crazy. So I'm so excited. Like, y'all might wake up tomorrow and we be halfway through the introductory. Like, we might start tomorrow. Listening to Tika and Peyton done pumped me up. So that might start ASAP. I was thinking next week or the week after. It might start ASAP. Listening to Tika and Peyton, just to let y'all know who to blame it on.
This is the Bible of the electrogenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject.
All right. So protons rising. Remember, when it comes to your biochemistry, everything is reversed. When it comes to bioelectricity, everything is reversed. So positive is bad, negative is good. Right? Just remember it that way for now. Like that's how I memorized it early on. Positive is bad, negative is good. Because in life, positive is good, negative is bad. But in biochemistry, it's the opposite. Right? At least on a surface level. That's just the safe way for you to remember it. Positive, bad, negative, good. Think about what I'm saying. Cancer means positive is rising. Cancer means positive is rising, right? Protons are taking over, right? Protons are taking over. So now think redox. Reduction, oxidation. Reduction, minus, negative, right? Reduction, negative, right? But negative is good. Negative is good. Oxidation is positive. Oxidation is positive. That's free radicals. That's catabolic. Right? All of those things goes together. Free radical, catabolic, proton, positive ion. Well, yeah, not positive ion, but yeah, we just say proton. Proton, free radical, catabolic. Those are all in line with acid. Those are all in line with acid, right? Bad, right? This kind of is in alignment with the Sabi space, Don't get deep. Don't veer off. Don't think, but I thought it. Don't do that. Just stay right in this redox. We're just talking about in the electrical sense, in the sense of electricity, right? So cell is negative, which is a good thing, right? Because electrons are negative. So accumulating electrons is accumulating negativity. So to make a cell more electric, you reduce it. You reduce it because you're adding more negativity, right? So yeah, when at first, if this is your first time hearing, hearing this, it's counterintuitive. It's super counterintuitive, but it's so counterintuitive, it helps you to remember it. Positive, bad, negative, good. All right. So hydrogen, positive hydrogen ion surplus for cancer, right? Sodium overload. And because there's a sodium overload, potassium is drained. With that combination, sometimes there's some kidney stuff going on. Yeah, with that combination, sometimes there's some kidney stuff going on. And then also because the sodium and potassium ion channel regulates the overall charge of the cell. Calcium and chloride movement could be like a little off and on. So that's why cancer cells are like zzz, 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 like they, their electricity is a little wonky. You're just tuning in. We are on page 229, 230, 231, just kind of breezing through. Just breezing through. Just breezing through. So we get an idea of electric wiring malfunctions in the cell. And there's a host of other things that go along with these issues, right? So like you can look up, let's see something real quick. Oh man, my charger.
Osborne, bro, listen. The single most important thing about diabetes you gotta remember is, listen, matter of fact, when we get into Bentley, I'll explain it. It's this Bentley. Listen. Wait. Get us to the mansion. Get us to the mansion. My wife. From the crown of thorns to facial chains and diabetes, you have never heard this much knowledge before in a zombie story. It could only be quantum entanglement with the big homie. Go to Amazon now, for Christ's sake.
Oh, we go turn that light off for me. Just in the nick of time. Just in the nick of time, I commit the perfect crime. Rip my heart out my chest, put it right into a rhyme. Okay. All right, so we got some electricity. All right, so if we look up this is just an example. Right? This is just an example. Right? This is just an example. Right? So this is one thing. Right? And we're just tapping on the top, whatever. Right? Low magnesium can disrupt the heart's electrical activity. Right? Muscle spasms, cramps, nausea, vomiting, appetite, a wide variety, anxiety, stress, sleep issues. It's interesting that they haven't mentioned diabetes. That's interesting. Yeah. Type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is frequently associated with both extracellular and intracellular magnesium deficits. Extracellular being outside the cell, intracellular being inside the cell. A chronic latent magnesium deficit or an overt clinical magnesium magnesium deficit is common in patients with diabetes, especially in those with poorly controlled glycemic profiles, right? So I'm just saying, just giving y'all an example, right? Because when you get better at having these conversations, learning this information, right? Your associations go wide, right? So in this book, remember, this is the American Healer Files, and it says right here, Volume 1, the Ionic Rite. So we're specifically sticking to ions, right? And electric wiring, microtubules, filaments, etc. But you can go wide with any of these things because each and every one of these things has a zillion different implications, right? So you start to be able to put together pictures. And as you put together pictures, you can start to talk to people and find out some stuff also about like what's going on with them, right? So a perfect example with diabetes is specifically type 2 in 2025. Most people don't actually eat vegetables. Most people with type 2 diabetes do not eat vegetables. Period. They do not eat vegetables. If you're talking to somebody with type 2 diabetes and they eat vegetables, it's obvious it's going to be either a recent addition to what they eat, or their idea of eating vegetables is incorrect. Yeah, like they might think they eat vegetables, but they don't. You might think you eat vegetables, but you don't. You're not eating no vegetables, right? Some people think they eat vegetables because they have vegetables disguised as other stuff. Like, oh, I had a veggie burger. So a veggie burger is not vegetables. It doesn't matter what, when you read the ingredients, it doesn't matter if it says that there's vegetables, like that's not vegetables. Oh, I have veggie, a vegan mac and cheese and like that's not vegetables, right? So there's a bunch of people running around believing because they're eating vegan items, vegan meats, or this is like that, those are not vegetables. Those are processed foods, just like Captain Crunch, Frosty Flakes is a processed food. When you get a Beyond Burger, that is a processed food. I want you to understand that. Like that is not a bag of kale. Like that's not even a bag of carrots. That is a processed food, right? Yeah, that's a process. I just have to repeat that. That is a processed food. Because folks like, yo, no, I had vegan ice cream, vegan, like chicken with this is like, you just ate a bunch of processed food. None of that was actual plants, right? So we need, most folks are not having actual plants. They're not eating actual plants. And then you get to the space where you have some people that do, right? But they, in comparison to what they had all day, they might as well not had any, right? Because this is such a small amount, right? They'll have it on the side, like one side amount. Like, no, you need to have like 10 servings. Yeah, you need to have 10 servings, So that's where smoothies really come in, to be honest. That's where smoothies really come in for me, for my children. Like that's where the smoothie comes in for me and for the smart people. The smoothie is about getting a whole bunch of vegetables and fruits and just a whole bunch of, actual plants. Zzz, zip that stuff down to condensed form and then get that right on in. Like, yeah, because if you drink a smoothie, the smoothie is gonna be like bad. You can blend down 2-3 pounds of plants into one drink. Done. You got that in. Yeah, you got that in. And the whole reason I'm saying that is because remember, we're having the magnesium conversation. The way nature is designed, when you eat your greens, that's where you're supposed to be getting your magnesium. That's where you're supposed to be getting your magnesium. So immediately, magnesium deficiency should tell you this person does not eat greens. This person does not eat greens. There's no greens in their diet, right? If it is, it's very little. It's very little, right? So green powder is cool, but green powder needs to go with green vegetables. Green powder does not replace green vegetables. I just want to put that on the record because I know one of y'all need to hear that. Maybe a bunch of y'all need to hear that. Because I know y'all getting them powders for $49.99 and $69. Y'all buying powders at top dollar. Yeah, no, this says 6 to 8 servings of vegetables on them. Hey, that's not 6 to 8 servings of vegetables. Y'all gotta relax. It's not 6 to 8 servings of vegetables. Just want y'all to know. So don't be getting duped. Yeah, you actually have to have, like, if you add that to your smoothie and your smoothie is loaded with actual plants or whatever the case may be, and then you put your powder in there, you Gucci. All right. So anyway, I just want you to know that you can extrapolate other stuff, right? So magnesium should immediately take your mind towards greens. What else with magnesium? Here's the reason why magnesium is so associated with diabetes, right? And we're going to be discussing this a lot. ATP. Right? ATP. It's going to be a central player in the 15-week course. ATP is used like that. ATP is used like this. ATP is used with magnesium. Yeah, ATP is used with magnesium. Right? So think about it. Think about how nature is designed. Energy, quick energy, right? Carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables, chlorophyll, right? All your fruits and vegetables going to have the chlorophyll. The chlorophyll is going to be, so as you break down the sugar, right, the glucose to produce ATP is supposed to come with this, right? Processed food doesn't have this. Processed food doesn't have this. White rice doesn't have this. Pasta doesn't have this, right? Quick biscuits doesn't have this, right? So automatically you have a metabolism issue, right? You have a deficit automatically because deficit, when you're dealing with biochemistry, deficit is about what you're trying to process, right? And everything is designed based on nature. It's why we focus on what? Pigment and fiber. If you focus on the pigment, you're going to have magnesium because you're going to get enough greens in. If you get enough greens and purples and dark blues, you're going to have enough magnesium to go along with your carbohydrates, right? To go along with your fatty acids. Like that's going to be, you're going to have that, right? How does, think about how a plant, right? Think about how fatty acids is created, right? Photosynthesis. So you got the sun, makes carbs, right? And then where does fatty acids come from? The sun makes carbs. Where does fatty acids come from? Right? See, these is the conversations. Like this is why we got to have these talks. Like we got to just talk. In order for you to be good at talking, you got to practice talking. So if you scared to talk and you in your house by yourself, we in trouble. So you got to be able to talk. You got to be able to participate in the chat. Don't be scared. Come on. The sun makes carbohydrates, right? Where does fats come from? Right? Where does fats come from? How does the plants make fats? Right? The plants make fat from the carbohydrate. Right? So where is fat primarily found in plants? Think about it. Think about it. Where is fats primarily found in plants? Seeds and nuts. Seeds and nuts, right? Seeds and nuts, because the plant makes fats out of carbohydrates. The same way you do. The plant makes carbohydrates for fuel, right? Sugar. The plant can utilize whatever it needs to utilize. It has minerals, water, sunlight, everything it needs to do what it needs to do on deck. But the seeds are for the future. The seeds are time capsules. The seeds are for some indefinite time in the future, right? So fats are condensed carbs. Fats are condensed carbs that they put in the seed for later. Right? Condensed carbs they put in the seed for later. This is why when you eat nuts, pause, right? When you eat nuts are very fat, very high in fats, right? Very high in fats because the plant is designed that way. That's for the future. All right, quiet on the set, folks. Thank you. Right? So I'm just, I want you to get this. I want you to get these concepts because this is real-time conversation. These are the things that's going to come up when you're talking to people about food and you're talking to people about heart health, right? These are the things that's going to come up because they're going to be watching the internet, and now the internet has turned into AI, and AI makes people dumber. AI makes 99.99999% of the population dumber. AI only tells you about what you ask it. So if you don't know something, you can't find it out from AI. A lot of people believe they can find out what they don't know from AI. You cannot. You can only ask AI about things you know. And so that's it. So if you never had in your mind to associate magnesium with diabetes, I just showed you on the live search, it won't do it. We typed in magnesium deficiency symptoms, diabetes didn't pop up. Then we went back to the search bar and typed in magnesium deficiency diabetes, and then a whole bunch of stuff popped up because we specifically said that. So it's only going to add details to something you already know to a degree, but it will not shed new light or give you new information, right? So people will have ideas. They'll be on the internet, they'll be looking at stuff, and they'll go, oh, healthy fats, right? Now, once you, quote unquote, health person, they having a health conversation with you, they're going to just be coming to you with sound bites. They watching TikTok videos, YouTube shorts. I don't know how they think they're getting educated watching clips and shorts, but this is what they're going to approach you. Oh yeah, healthy fats. Go. Which fats are healthy? Right? They're going to be watching some paleo guy that told them they can get healthy fats from bison or raw rabbit, whatever. And then somebody else told them walnut, and you got to break that down. You got to break that down, right? You got to make sense out of that. So you got to be able to walk them through some stuff, right? So what we're doing with ions is starting at the smaller space, and as you get used to having these conversations, you'll be able to take it to a larger space, right? So hopefully that makes sense, right? Hopefully that makes sense, right? And then you'll be able to start to see patterns, like, oh, okay, so we were naturally designed to have carbohydrates with pigment intact, right? With pigment intact. With pigment intact means all of the ions associated with those pigments we would get that when we're eating the food, right? This new world where stuff is processed, your body is not designed. So now you got to put things, because we're not going to stop eating processed food, right? Respectfully, we're not going to do it. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. You know, I limit it. You know what I'm saying? I try to keep it limited. Of course, that's, you know, I try to keep it limited, but you're not going to stop eating processed food, especially eating vegan food. Vegan food is processed. You know what I'm saying? If you having snack, little cookies or something, what you doing? You having processed food, right? You get some fast food somewhere, even if it's vegan, with like processed food, right? You out getting a smoothie somewhere. The smoothies is processed food. 99% of places that make smoothies, unless it's like a juice bar, 99% of those places that make smoothies are making them from canned fruits. And the crazy thing is our minds are back. Like, you know what fruits they use? You know the fruit cups that they give you in school that nobody liked to eat? Yeah, those little fruit cups in school nobody liked to eat. When you go to the smoothie place, when you go to the smoothie place, that's what you're getting. For $7, you're getting that same little fruit cup with like $15 worth of ice. Like they gonna hit you with like $2, $3 worth of ice. They're gonna hit you with one of them little free fruit cups worth of fruit with syrup, with sugar. Zzz, smoothie. $8.63. Yeah. $8.60, $10, please. Just put the rest in the tip jar. So you're turning down the fruit cup or the can of fruit. Like, I don't eat no cans of fruit. That got high fructose corn syrup in it. You go to get tropical, wherever, when you go get that smoothie, you paying $10 for that 75-cent fruit, can of fruit. That's a certified big fat. Yeah. That's why most places they have it behind the counter. They have the fruits behind the counter in the little dishes, and they just scoop it up and drop the little scooper inside the blender. Yeah. You're getting mostly ice with syrup and sugar. I'm just saying. All right. So we got a little zinc. We got a little zinc convo, right? We got a little magnesium combo. Let's have little combos real quick. Let's have some little combos. Magnesium, calcium, zinc, potassium, hydrogen, right? Hydrogen is very deceptive. Hydrogen is very deceptive, right? Because if you ask a person, what's your major source of hydrogen? They're going to say water. It's not. It's not. I mean, it is, but it's not. Right? Sodium. Right? Copper. Iron. Right? You should just mentally associate these things with stuff. Right? Chloride, right? You should just mentally associate these things with stuff. Right? So all of these should have a memory. You should have something you associate all of these things with in your mind. Right? Calcium. What do you mentally associate calcium with? Let's just have a free word association moment in the chat. What do you associate calcium with? Say anything. Say anything. What do you associate calcium with? Somebody said boobs. What? Oh, bobs. I don't know what that means. Bones. All right, that's a good one for calcium. Right, that's a good one for calcium. But also, begin to associate calcium with electricity. Begin to associate calcium with electricity. And I know kind of like all of the ions are associated with electricity, but calcium specifically, your cells use for like an on and an off switch. Yeah, your cells, depending on what type of cells they are, they have something that they do. And usually calcium is associated with like turning that function on. Right? So like beta cells to produce insulin, when the calcium switches it on. Right? Or some cells it's an off switch, but usually calcium is right? An on or off switch. So bones is a good association. Electricity is a good association. I guess we'll roll with that. Bones and electricity. Zinc. What is a good zinc word association? Tika trying to give us a disclaimer, talking about she driving. Text to speech. No, speech to text. No, drive safe. Just listening. Drive safe. What's a good word association for zinc? Prostate. Okay. That's pretty tough. That's a tough one right there. That's pretty tough. I like that. I like that. Prostate. Memory. I wouldn't have thought of memory. I don't know if I would have thought of memory. Yeah, you gotta be slick now. Now you say memory, you gotta be slick to pull that off. Remember, this is the locker room. Like, this is practice, right? This is the locker room. This is practice, right? But if we were doing a test, if I was testing you, you would have to sell this to me. Like, this might be on the test, right? And so if I ask you for a word association, you're going to have to be able to break that down, right? If I say zinc and you say memory, you're going to have to break down to me biochemically how zinc is associated with memory and why it should be known, like associated with memory. So you got to be able to hold that down. Yeah. No. That's cool if you learned it from me. I'm just saying that's not going to be, you're not going to be able to say, that's not going to be an acceptable answer. That's going to be wrong. Just let you know. Like, if I'm testing you, you're not going to be able to say, well, I got that from you, doc. That's not, you got to break it down. Like, as if you're talking to a person outside in the world that doesn't know anything. And they ask you, hey, what is zinc about? Or they might hit you with this. They might say, well, I just came from the doctor and the doctor said I got low zinc. What should I be on the lookout for? And then if you respond and say, well, you might have some memory stuff or whatever, they're going to be like, why? Like, how's that? You gotta go in. You can't say, well, go to Inky page. Like, you can't, you can't run. You gotta break that down now. You gotta hold that line. So you got to be able to explain that, whatever your word association is. No. Now look, here goes Tika done jumped off the top rope. You cannot answer somebody else's answer. Yeah, you can't answer somebody else because he might be or she might be alone somewhere, wherever. She ain't gonna have the chat to tap in with, like, yo, Tika, then break it. Like, you're gonna be out there by yourself, and chances are you're gonna get jumped. Chances are you're gonna get jumped. This is mental self-defense. This is that. Listen, there's a reason why. Hold on, let me show you these books. Let me show you how these book covers. Look, there's a reason why these two book covers. You see these two book covers? There's a reason why this martial arts style book covers. because this is mental jujitsu. When you're teaching something that nobody really knows, but everybody's interested in and warm and accepting, it's not mental jujitsu. You're just basically informing, you're sharing information. But when you're talking about food, I would be doing you a disservice if I was telling you that it's going to be like honky-dory out there. It is not. People grow up with food. They have traditions. They have customs. They've grown up on White Castle or eating Oreos or eating whatever it is. Like, do you see how many people die before they give up pork or bacon? Or like, people got holes in their neck from smoking cigarettes, and they still they got the thing that go on their neck like, well, I've been smoking too many cigarettes, and they still smoking a cigarette with the hole in their neck, with the yeah, they still smoking the cigarettes. Like, so then you get to that's the next level, is addictions. Not only is it culture, is it tradition, holiday stuff, like stuff that's ingrained in their brain. People identify themselves with their food. And then on top of all that, they're addicted to the chemicals in the food. So when you start talking about food, chances are you're going to get jumped, right? Especially when you step out somewhere public. Like if you're in a beauty salon or a barbershop, woo! Now, hopefully you might have a few allies in there. You don't know who's who in there. So when you start talking, it might be 2-3 people that doesn't know a little something about a little something. So when you start talking, you have a few people got your back. But typically, it's 1-on-5, or if you at the family reunion or you at the cookout somewhere, forget about it. You getting jumped in them places. So you got to be ready. Okay, yeah. I can tell you got that in. hey, I can tell. That right there sounds like that's fresh off the search engine. I can tell that. Yeah, I can tell that was fresh off the search engine. Yeah. I can tell that was fresh off the search engine. You ain't gonna be able to listen. That's why the test for these degrees is going to be me and you one-on-one having a conversation, right? Because you ain't going to be able to, so that's another thing, is you want to stay in your will battle. Now, when you present yourself with information, people will start asking you questions all over the place. And the best thing that I learned over the years, which has always been a good tool, is just, I don't know that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, even till today, that's what keeps me up at night. That's what keeps me writing more and more and more and studying more and more and more and more, is I enjoy teaching. And people always have new questions, whether they have ridiculous questions or they're actually good questions. I like to stay ahead. So it keeps me studying. And the information about the human body is almost infinite. It's almost infinite. So there is no such thing as learning it all. You can learn a lot about a specific thing, but you'll never know it all. You'll never know it all. Right? So the most two popular word associations, right, with zinc is probably going to be something having to do with like testosterone or some derivative of that, right? So you'll have testosterone or something to have to do with that, like prostate or something to that effect, or immune system. Yeah, a lot of companies made a lot of money just off zinc. You got companies that's making a lot of money just off of knowing one thing. One thing. And that's it. They putting a whole company around it, making a whole bazillion dollars. So acne, right? You had a bunch of companies that came out with skin stuff to fight acne and blah, blah, blah. Once they found out about the microbiome on the skin and zinc being a major player in skin immunity, they start coming up with all kinds of zinc stuff, and it works. It's good for your skin, right? So zinc, or any kind of rash, infection, pimples, whatever, zinc is amazing, right? Zinc and magnesium have a lot of enzymes that they power, right? Magnesium enzymes usually have something to do with energy metabolism, and zinc enzymes usually have something to do with immune function, right? So, but these guys are all over the place. These guys are all over the place. So associating zinc with memory is absolutely correct. It's not that it's incorrect. It's absolutely correct. But you just got to be sharper. You know, the more. So like in the world of social media, the way people talk now, and it's not like a specific, like, but it's just how people groom now to talk. You know, we like to say something that everybody else ain't saying or whatever. That just makes it more difficult. So you just got to be more polished, right? So you can get deeper with it and go zinc. You can go into memory and cognitive function, but you gotta be able to chop that up. You can go into zinc and copper relationship. You just got to be able to chop that up, right? So potassium. Give me a good word association for potassium. What does potassium do in your body? Right? What does potassium do? Give me something with potassium. Come on. Potassium. Come on. Give me something with potassium. Pancreas. That's interesting. You got to pull it off. Banana. Banana's a good one. That's a word association. Now somebody might ask you what it do. But yeah, potassium is high in bananas, right? High in bananas, coconut stuff. Potassium is one I would associate with memory. Yeah, potassium is one I would associate with memory. So like when my children go to school, like if they got a big test coming up, it's going to be bananas. Bananas is the cheap, you know what I'm saying? That's the inexpensive. Bananas is the inexpensive route, right? If life is good, we might have some coconut water to go with those bananas. Yeah, if life is good, we have some coconut water to go with those bananas. Hold on to that. Yeah. Send them to school with some coconut waters and some bananas. Right. But we're not getting Zicos. I'm just letting you know. We're not getting cheap coconut waters. Those are trash. That's going to cloud their memory and make it foggy. Those are not good. That's processed food. It's raw coconut water or nothing, right? You're much better off going with tap water than buying those other fake coconut waters. Just give your children tap. Trust me, that might sound crazy, but they'll be much healthier, right? Because you're giving them tap anyway, right? That's what y'all got to get comfortable with. If your child drinks a can of soda, that's tap water with added chemicals and flavors. If your child if you give your child a Zico is like the cheap coconut water from Pepsi or Coca-Cola, one of them makes Zico, right? It's just tap water with coconut powder, sugars, chemicals added to make it like that. But this tap water, just know that all these drinks is tap water. So 9 out of 10 times, your child is better off with just the plain tap water because it's minus the sugar, the artificial colors, and the chemicals. Otherwise, you're giving them tap water, artificial colors, chemicals, and sugars, right? But the tap water just sounds so disrespectful and vile. Like, oh my God, Inky, say it ain't so. I'm just trying to let y'all know. When you get your children in box drinks, oh yeah, they got a little box juice. Tap. Anyway, so potassium. Potassium is good for memory, right? Potassium is good for memory. Yeah, I'm telling y'all. Even when you go to the store and you buy almond milk, soy milk, walnut milk, coconut milk, all of those nut milks is made, oat milk, all of those things is made with tap water, right? So when you pour almond milk into your cereal or whatever you're doing with your almond milk, that's tap water. When you go get your vegan ice cream, what do you think they're making it with? It's dairy free, so it's not milk. What do you think they made that with? They made that with tap water. All right. Potassium is good for the memory. Potassium is good for energy. All right. Potassium is good for memory. It's good for energy. Hydrogen. Right? What is hydrogen good for? What is hydrogen good for? What's a good word association for hydrogen? What's a good word association for hydrogen? Water? Is that where we get hydrogen? Water? Remember, hydrogen is in all of the food. Right? Remember, hydrogen is in all of the food. Right? Remember, hydrogen is in all of the food, right? So you got carbon. Right? Food starts right here. When you take an atom of carbon and you add a drop of water to it. When you add a water molecule to carbon, that's what starts food. Right? When you add water to carbon, you get carbohydrates. Right? Then fats. Right? Fat is different. Fat is mostly just these two. Carbon and hydrogen. They got a little sprinkle of oxygen, a little splash of oxygen. Right? It just got a little splash of oxygen. There's not much oxygen in there. You got a long carbon chain with a lot of hydrogen going on, right? And then your protein, you add nitrogen in, right? So hydrogen is in all of your food. Hydrogen is in all of your food, right? And remember, when you metabolize food, the main step of metabolizing food, whether it's carbohydrates, fats, or protein, is this. So definitely don't listen to any of them goofballs still running around talking about they're carbon-based beings and they're eating carbon-based diets. That is the most ridiculous thing on earth to say. Every earth creature is a carbon-based being. Flies that buzz around shit are carbon-based beings, and they literally are eating poop. So, and not only do they literally eat poop, but poop is carbon-based food. So if you eat poop, you could say, oh, I'm a carbon-based being eating a carbon-based, like that's, but your body gets rid of carbon, right? So saying what you eat is a carbon-based diet makes no sense, because carbon is the thing that your body gets rid of the fastest. It's the least important thing in the food, right? Because your body's going to get rid of it as carbon dioxide. Like that's the main thing your body gets rid of, right? So that's ridiculous. You don't want to be saying that, right? You don't want to be saying that, right? So your hydrogen is coming right from your food. Your hydrogen is coming right from your food, depending on how you metabolize the food, right? Depending on what your body does, whether your body's using this to build structures, whether your body's using it for energy, whether your body is storing it up for later, like squirrels and chipmunks. That's going to determine what's going on here. That's going to determine the redox reactions, what's happening in your body, right? Your body can metabolize things in different ways, and those different ways is based on what your body's going to do with the food that is breaking down. That's the whole program. Like, what is your body doing with this, right? Because it needs to be in a format for that, right? In order to go into the Krebs cycle, glucose and, like carbohydrates have to be in a certain form. Fats have to be in a certain form, right? In order to be stored for later, they have to be in a different type of form. In order for amino acids to be utilized, they got to be in a certain form. So, you don't just build your body with steak, right? Nor do you build it with chickpeas, you know what I'm saying? Like lentils, you know what I'm saying? Your body has to break down the lentil, the chickpea, the steak, whatever it is, extract those, quinoa, right? Extract those amino acids, right? Revitalize those amino acids, because if they've been cooked and already folded and all, they're completely denatured. So your body has to break that down and then totally like reanimate that to an extent, which is why they have a whole nother conversation now circulating with food, like the thermogenic value of the food, right? How much energy it takes your body to break down the food. And so a lot of the people that are promoting high protein diet is saying the high protein diet is good because it takes a lot of calories in order for your body to even metabolize proteins, right? But that argument can go both directions, right? So an intelligent person, not just an intelligent person, but a person who's well-rounded in biochemistry. They can make a good argument for protein or against protein with that information. Somebody that doesn't know any better, if they hear that, they're like, oh, look, no, protein is lit because it has a high thermogenic value. But you could look at that high thermogenic value and be like, yeah, that's your body's way of telling you that it doesn't want that. It could barely digest it. You have to break it down and turn it into something else in order for your body to use it, right? So you can make an equally strong argument like why you should not be consuming a high protein diet, because your body's telling you it's not bioavailable, it's not palatable, right? That's why it's a high thermogenic value, right? But having a high thermogenic value is good, right? It is good for, depends on what you got going on with yourself, right? But just trying to give you an example, right? That's one of the reasons why nitrogen, right? Not only because of the structure, but nitrogen provides that extra energy that you're going to need to utilize amino acids, right? So anyway, I'm just saying, these are all things that's going to come up in conversation when you're out there talking to people about food. You need to know the nature of what food is, right? Proteins, fats, carbohydrates. And with carbohydrates and fats, if you say carbohydrates is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, a person is going to ask you very quickly when you tell them what fats is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen too. They're going to say, well, what's the difference? If a carbohydrate is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, what is the difference between a carbohydrate and a fat? Right? So you got to be able to tell them. A fat is a condensed carbohydrate. Right? It's a whole bunch of carbohydrates condensed into one. Storing it up for later. Storing it up for later. All right. All right. Yeah, see, this is not how we would normally talk, but to get you ready for the test, our test, and then the real world test, this is how we got to do it. This is how we have to do it. Right? You have to learn these little pieces. Man, we done tore up the little prayer reminder, right? 6 a.m., noon, 3 p.m. fade now, 6 p.m., 9 p.m. gone. 9 p.m. gone. All right. Man. All right, so diabetes. You're like, hold up, but we didn't finish word association. Chloride, stomach acid, iron, blood, copper. I don't know. Copper could be bone, right? Copper might be bone. If you're not thinking bone, you need to start thinking bone, because copper makes tissues. Copper, lysine, and vitamin C, they come together to make tissue, right? They're not the material of the tissues, but they start the process of your body to making tissues. Copper, lysine, not leucine, lysine. Copper, lysine, and vitamin C. Right? All right, so diabetes. Low magnesium. Low magnesium. We're on page 205. If you don't have the book, you need the book. Right? Low magnesium. Right? Normal role is a cofactor for insulin receptor activation. Right? A cofactor for insulin receptor activation. Right? You want to think of magnesium in terms of mag ATP. Here we go. All right. See what the Google demons say. See what the Google demons say? The Google angels. The Google they're angels for me because I know what I'm searching, right? But if you don't know what you're searching for, they quickly become the Google demons. They become gatekeepers that lock you out, right? The biologically active form of ATP is magnesium ATP. Magnesium ions bind to ATP, stabilizing the molecule and enabling it to effectively participate in cellular processes. Right? So, no greens, no magnesium, right? No chlorophyll. No, carbohydrates was not designed for you to consume without pigment. Only Facts Club. All right. And so if the magnesium is responsible for you to metabolize the ATP, no magnesium, you can't metabolize ATP, insulin resistance. Insulin resistance. It's just that simple. All right. What else we have? Potassium. Right? Potassium. Potassium is insulin dependent. Potassium is insulin dependent, not independent, insulin dependent. So you walk it down, right? If low magnesium causes insulin resistance, right? Right, or contributes, right? Once you get to insulin resistant, you automatically going to be low potassium. Right? Now, mind you, these things are responsible for the activity in your electrical wiring in your cells, right? So for people who missed the first class, I believe we talked about it. We might not have. I believe we did. I want to believe we talked about filaments. I want to believe we did, but my mind might not be. Because see, in my mind, I might be merging the memory of the first class we did. Like there's the last week class, and then there's the class the periodic table of ions class we did, right? So I know at some point we had the filaments conversation, right? Which may or may not have been last week. But that's your electrical wiring, right? All right, then we have high levels of calcium. Now, mind you, high levels of calcium can represent some other stuff, depending on where it's at, right? High levels of calcium can represent some other stuff. And remember, it's no certain number, right? It's just depending on where it's at and where something's supposed to be, like who it's supposed to be working with. So a lot of times you'll find calcium and magnesium are supposed to be partners, right? Especially when you're having a diabetes conversation, because diabetes is primarily a conversation about muscle tissue, right? It's primarily a conversation about muscle tissue. So if you have too much of a high body fat, that means you don't have enough muscle tissue. Not having enough muscle could cause diabetes by itself. You don't have enough muscle to match the amount of sugar you're eating. Muscle tissue is what breaks down sugar specifically. So if you're eating more sugar than you got muscle to metabolize, it's a wrap. Right? It's a wrap. That's why in the books we break down exactly all the different muscle types, how much sugar they store in it, right? Because muscles even store sugar, glycogen, right? They store glycogen, not glucose, but they store glycogen, right? So muscle is diabetes. Like that's, if we had to classify one cell type for diabetes, it would be muscle cells. Muscle cells is the site of action for diabetes. That's where the insulin's going. That's where the sugar's going. That's where all the action is at. That's the reason why obesity is easily linked to diabetes, because people who are obese don't have enough muscle tissue. They have too much fat. So if you have too much body fat, you're automatically going to be insulin resistant, because you have an overwhelming number of glucose and fatty acids circulating way too much for your muscle to be able to break down. It's a wrap, right? So anyway, wherever something is at, it has usually mineral elements have partners, right? Like potassium works with sodium a lot of places, right? Potassium and sodium go together. Calcium and magnesium go together. Some places you find zinc and copper. Some places you find copper and iron. Like that's how it goes. So you'll learn them that way. You know what I'm saying? You'll learn them that way. Like even with high blood pressure. Now look, diabetes, low potassium, right? High blood pressure is also associated with low potassium. This is how diabetes creates high blood pressure, right? You just walk through it. Even though we didn't mention it because we wasn't talking about that, that's absolutely the pattern for high blood pressure to develop, right? Low magnesium creates insulin resistance. Potassium is dependent on insulin. So now if it's insulin resistance, it's potassium resistance. Low potassium means you're going to usually be high sodium, because sodium and potassium got to balance each other out. And so if you got low potassium, you're going to have high sodium. The same way, if you have low magnesium, you're going to have high calcium, because calcium and magnesium supposed to balance each other out, right? So you see you got high calcium, it's safe to assume that's because it's low magnesium. Low potassium, high sodium, right? And what your doctor is not telling you about the blood pressure is that, you know, processed foods, they have to turn the natural paradigm upside down. Because most natural foods, like fruits and vegetables, nature packages them low sodium, high potassium. low sodium, high potassium. Yeah, because potassium is more for energy. Sodium is more for preservation, right? Open up your codex. This is going long. I said we was going to be out of here. This was supposed to be a short conversation. Now it's stretching long. We approaching midnight. We supposed to be shutting this down. Hold on, let me go get my codex. All right. If you open up your codex, if you don't have a codex, you are smoking. Because the 15-week, you're going to need your codex for the 15-week class because it's based on the codex. Right? It's going to be 3 or 4 books that you need for the 15-week class. All right. Where we at? It's somewhere in here. Yep. Page 110. Let me see. Is this it? No, not page 110. Is it 115? It's right in this neck of the woods somewhere. Yeah, because we went heavy. Yeah, we went heavy right up in here. Right up in here. Oh no, it might be 105. Yeah, this whole little pocket. But I think, yeah, page 105. Right? The doctrine of preservation, external and internal. Yeah. We talk about sodium and a few others, right? We get into our pigment bag. Right? Because we're talking more about preserving the living body than the dead body. Right? We're talking more about preserving the living body than the dead body. So we get into our pigment bag, our polyphenols, but sodium is more about preservation. How does sodium control preservation? Right? How does sodium control preservation? Sodium controls preservation because sodium controls water. Right? Sodium controls preservation because sodium controls water. Man, the whole notepad is filled up. Gotta get me a new notepad. Crazy. That's crazy right there. All right. So yeah, you have to have this on deck at all times. you have to have this on deck at all times. Okay, then we go to the vitamin E family. Okay, and then we get into our glutathione bag, right? And that's where glutathione and sodium, comes together in water, right? But sodium, more of a preservative, potassium, more of an energy creator. Sodium is more of a dehydrator. Potassium is more of a hydrator, right? Energy, hydration. Dehydration, lack of energy, right? Lack of energy is preserving, right? How do you preserve a body? You remove the water, right? If there's no movement, there's no wear and tear. Wear and tear comes from movement. Movement comes from energy, right? So usually that's always going to be the basics when you have coupling inside biochemistry. One is going to be movement, one is going to be stillness, right? Remember, the body runs on binary coding, ones and zeros. One is going to be movement, one is going to be stillness, right? So even with magnesium and calcium, calcium makes your muscles contract. Magnesium relaxes it, right? Movement, stillness. 1, 0, right? So this is how you get from diabetes to high blood pressure. And this is why your doctor doesn't really break down the whole, but the doctor tell you stay away from salt, right? Stay away from salt. But the salt has iodine in it. Like, it's always one thing to another. So the salt has iodine in it, right? So now here's what happens. You stay away from the salt, you stay away from iodine, because most people's not into sea vegetables. So now your metabolism slows all the way down. Your metabolism slows all the way down, right? So high sodium, you avoid salt. Typically, you're going to go low iodine at that point. You don't have iodine. It's going to be low T3, T4, which are your thyroid hormones. Low thyroid activity. You're going to build up fat. And some people are going to be thinking in their mind that they got a thyroid issue, but they don't. They just have an iodine, sodium issue, right? They're dehydrated and they're not getting enough iodine, right? So anyway, this is how diabetes can go into other pockets, right? That's how diabetes can go to high blood pressure. Right here, this problem right here, this mismatch between calcium and magnesium is how you get fibromyalgia, or I forgot what they call it, when you're just super tired, fatigue, chronic fatigue syndrome, right? Right in here, chronic fatigue syndrome, right? Low potassium, low energy. Low magnesium is low energy because the magnesium is the ATP, you know. So low magnesium, low potassium, low energy, chronic fatigue, right? Then because it comes along with high calcium, that's where you might try to do like a few little, you know, curls or a few little push-ups, and then you try to jog a little bit and you feel like your leg is locking up or whatever the case may be, because you got enough calcium to fire the muscle, but you don't have enough magnesium to relax the muscle after it fires. So it just locked up. right? It just locked up, so you got spasm, right? What else? All kind of stuff in there, right? All kind of stuff in there. Oh, chloride, right? So you start running low on chloride, the cell will get more, well, I ought to say more positive. The cell will get less negative, less chloride. So that's one of the things I recognized early when they start coming out with the Kangen machines as a potential danger. It's like, don't get too alkaline, because then you can't break food down. You can't produce electricity. Like, it's not. So anyway, the more you get comfortable with having these little ion conversations, the more you'll be able to pull more stuff out of the conversation, right? High sodium. What else? Acid level goes up, right? Because you get an abundance of positive hydrogen ions building up, right? And that kind of has to do with this here, right? That has to do with this here more than anything else, right? Because remember, this is how mitochondria go. Right? Protons, or what's called positive hydrogen ions, is what drives mitochondria, right? So remember this. When they say electron transport chain, it's deceptive. It's deceptive because here is it's like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. This is the one where it makes the ATP, right? Number 5, right? So electrons go like this. Yeah, we're just going to say E for electrons. Electrons go like this. Electrons go from here to here to here to here, right? That's what electrons do. Electrons is passed down. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Electrons don't go here. Electrons don't even go through all 5. Electrons go through the first 4. And then that's it, right? So remember, at number 5 is where ATP is made. Number 4 is where water is made. So the electrons stop right here and turn into water, right? But each one of these, each time electrons is passed through here, protons move from the inside of mitochondria to the outside. Protons move from here to out here. So electrons basically is like magnetism, right? Electrons attract protons to it, right? And each one of these stops is like fishing, like it's faking them out, like they using the electron for bait. They flashing the electron, and then when the proton jump over, it move, and then the proton like builds up over here. And so you get a whole bunch of protons build up over here, and then the protons have to go through cytochrome 5 to get back to their buddies, to get back home, right? Back to this matrix here, back to this pool of water. And the protons moving through this cytochrome number 5 is what makes this spin around. And this spinning around is what recycles the ATP. So it's really protons that's doing it, right? So what happens is when you get jammed up, insulin resistance causes you to have pools of protons that's not moving, right? Or positive hydrogen ions, however you want to phrase it. But you get pools of them that's not moving, right? And the reason they're not moving is because you're not breaking down sugar to keep electrons moving through here, right? As long as you keep a steady flow of electrons, you got a steady flow of protons like this, right? The protons is good. They distracted. They minding their business because they constantly busy. You know, they say the idle mind is a devil's playground. So when you got diabetes, your protons have an idle mind. They just standing around with nothing to do, right? And it ain't long before they get into, you know, who knows, start having sex with the neighbor's wife, you know, I don't know, steal a purse, I don't know, right? They start doing stuff they ain't got no business doing, right? That's kind of how it goes, right? So when you have diabetes, once this starts to break down, because again, remember, in order for your cell to use the ATP, you need magnesium. So it can only use the ATP as it has the magnesium. So if it's low magnesium, it doesn't matter if it's a flood of ATP in there, your cell can't use it for energy. Just think of it that way, right? So because it can't use it for energy, the whole, see, I got subway analogies from New York that I can use, but everybody's not from New York. But if you're from New York, you know, you've been on your way to school in the morning or work in the morning, and that train just stopped. You stuck. Usually, though, your job or your school will understand it because everybody has been subject to it. But sometimes it just is what it is, right? All right. So hopefully you get the whole acid buildup. Now, mind you, that's acid. Positive hydrogen ions or protons is acid. That is the textbook definition of acid, right? Proton donor, electron receiver, that is an acid. You're building up acid in the cells, right? You're building up acid in the cells with the low magnesium, low potassium. What else you got going on? All right, we can jump from there. All right, we can jump from there. Actually, let me see what time it is. Because I think I'm trolling. Yeah, I think y'all can pick up from there. That's we late. And we got like 70 people in here at after midnight. I don't know what y'all doing with the nerds, with the nerds on Friday night. Let's make iodine into an acronym. I don't know what to think about iodine. And I didn't even throw iodine up there. Iodine just popped into the conversation because it's so related. You know what I'm saying? It's tied to sodium because that was the government cheat code for people getting cancer. Listen, the government is wild. the government is wild. Like, you know what I'm saying? Folks running around with cancer and the government be acting like, oh, we're doing research. We got to figure it out. What are y'all talking about? You put the iodine in there to stop thyroid disease and cancer. Right? That's why they put it in the table salt. They put vitamin D in the food to stop bone disease. Like, all of these vitamins and minerals that we have to have them because the government knows that they technically like cure diseases. That's where they all came from vitamin C to vitamin B, this one, that one, all of these things that we daily have to have. People first had the disease. So we first had the rickets and the bones and this and that. And then they say, oh, well, you have to have the vitamin D per day, this amount, right? And that amount, the daily value, is not the amount you need to be like at your best. It's the amount you need to not get disease. Yeah, so that's what all these things is known for, something, right? Vitamin C is known to stop you from bleeding. Yeah, because your tissues literally fall apart without vitamin C. Vitamin C builds tissues, puts them together. Without vitamin C, your tissues literally come apart. Yeah, so that's what the scurvy and the, you know, like all these different things, pellagra and all these different things is what made vitamins or minerals, whatever. It's something that was happening to the population and they came with a solution. So iodine came with 3 problems. Kids were dumb. Adults had thyroids and tumors. And the iodine was needed to raise intelligence, lower the tumors rate, the cancer rate, and the thyroid issues. So they know about iodine, right? So they put the iodine in the salt because people put salt on their food all the time. So it's like, oh, okay, we attach this to this, and then people will be always using iodine. But the problem is you fast forward 50 years, 100 years, people are now having an epidemic of high blood pressure attached to the sodium. And so the doctor's like, yeah, stay away from the sodium. But we don't have sodium. There's no sodium in the supermarket. It's salt in the supermarket. And the salt comes with the iodine. So if we stay away from salt, we not only stay away from sodium, but we also stay away from the iodine. So once that happens, metabolism slows down. And then we get those same diabetes issues, but we get them in reverse. Like if we don't have diabetes, but we have the high blood pressure and we stop using salt, which means we lower our iodine level, we slow up our metabolism and we get fat. Yeah, and then we get the insulin resistance from the fat buildup because we're not getting the iodine. So all these things we need to, you know what I'm saying? We need to know. We need to put them in our mental Rolodex, right? Now, this is their function in the world of particles, right? When I'm talking about these things like the way I am now, this is their functions in the world of particles. But these things also have functions in the world of waves, which is where you get into electricity and magnetism and light and information and energy and blah, 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 which is the reason why it gets weird, why it's weird to have a conversation about ions, right, and mix hydrogen in it. Because it's where the lie is where it gets weird at, right? Because you have positive hydrogen ion, negative hydrogen ion, right? But this is not real. This is fake, right? Because this is actually a proton, and this is actually an electron. Remember, hydrogen is only made out of one proton and one electron. So when you split a hydrogen atom, it's just an electron and a proton. Yeah. So when you break up a hydrogen atom, this is it. So the reason why I'm saying it gets weird, and you got to constantly keep this in your mind, is because this is subatomic particles. This is subatomic particles. This is quantum mechanics. This is not physics, right? All of the other ions, when we talk about calcium, sodium, magnesium, whatever, those are under the laws and rules of physics. When we talk about these guys is not under the laws and rules of classical physics. They fall under the rules of quantum mechanics, and they start doing they do other stuff, which is the problem. This is where the disconnect is. This is where the disconnect is in our food conversation, because this is where the world of energy is. Energy is here. And we've been trying to apply classical physics to food conversations. It doesn't work because we're breaking food down, carbohydrates, fatty acid, whatever. We're breaking it down to this, right? When we get to Krebs cycle, citric acid cycle, tricarboxylic acid cycle, we talking about this. We're talking about subatomic. It's a whole nother universe of behavior, right? So anyway, we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. Fridays at 10.
This is why you have to go to Amazon and get the book, Rich Abs, Poor Abs, now.